We're honored to have Monsieur le Ministre, Minister of Education from Haiti, and he is our next presenter.
Merci. Merci, Monsieur Gomez. Moi, je parle français. J'espère que les systèmes de traduction vont permettre à tout le monde de comprendre. C'est un honneur et un plaisir pour moi de me retrouver ce matin dans l'enceinte de cette prestigieuse université afin de m'adresser à cette auguste assemblée en ce moment particulier de la vie de notre peuple. Permettez tout d'abord que je remercie la Première Dame de la République d'Haïti, Madame Breval, qui m'a invité à l'accompagner pour sa visite dans ce temple du savoir où elle a été formée. Je remercie le président et les responsables de l'université pour leur accueil chaleureux, mais je remercie ici à cette tribune le peuple américain pour la solidarité qu'il a manifestée envers Haïti et après le 12 janvier. Et cet élan de solidarité,
the show of solidarity upholds the spirit and the courageous people of Haiti, where we have come together at a crucial time, a time of tragedy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say that I've heard the other speakers, and particularly I heard the presentation and the speech from the First Lady that has given you an overview of the situation and the state of play in Haiti and the state of play of education well before the 12th of January. But she has also given you an overview of the disaster since the 12th of January and the consequences of this picture. I would just like to underscore some of the other points in this picture, but particularly I would like to speak to the response envisaged by the government with a view to try to get up and running the educational system in Haiti again. Let me just remind you that the Haitian educational system was severely hit by the disaster on the 12th of January, and there is no shadow of a doubt that the main political and economic infrastructure was hard hit. But for the educational system, we were hit on all levels. Preschool, the basic fundamental to the secondary, professional, and higher education systems to a large extent. And Mrs. Breval, in her own presentation, spoke about the disaster that hit the physical infrastructure of schools. We have more than 4,000 schools that were totally destroyed to a large extent in the departments of the West and in the departments of the West. They have the majority of school population. It's more than 40%, all told. Let's just say that there were approximately 4,000 students that were dead and tallied up. A number disappeared, and we lost more than 100,000 teachers and more or less 200 administrators in the central administration in terms of the decentralized management system. Now, higher education was also hard hit as well. More than 80% of the infrastructure of higher education was hit, was affected. There were universities or schools that lost more than 50% of their people. So it's a rather complex picture that we now have. Unfortunately, despite that situation, we really have to put in our elbow grease, and we have to ensure that children go back to school. Furthermore, there was a bit of stoppage in terms of the schools working even in the or outside of the zones that were affected. There are 3 departments in Haiti that were mostly hit. We're speaking about the departments in the west, where the capital is, the southeast, and part of the Edip department, as we call them. But there were other areas that were not directly affected. But there, I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to say that in the wake of the catastrophe, the people have moved out, but we have departments that were not directly affected. They were indirectly affected because they got massive influxes of people. We're talking about 100,000 people who were displaced, and as much as we have a young population, we're talking about a little bit more than 40% of the population, the school-going population. So we have talking about 200 children that have gone to other departments. we really have to retally these migrants and find a place for them. Where they are, we have retallied more than 80% some odd, but we do have to take a new census and get these children back to school. So I can tell you that all told, the school activities have been picked up in the other departments. But the major challenge now is to guarantee a return to school in the departments that have been directly hit. And that gives me a chance then to speak about the plan designed by the state with a view to normalizing life, to pick up the educational system and get it back on track. In the short term, some of the objectives would be to get the children back to school, and this would be in the departments that have been directly hit. And there, we're talking about operations to take in the children, the intake. We're talking about the educational system in the departments where the infrastructure has been hit. We're talking about 4,000 schools. For the departments of the West, only 400 schools were destroyed, and these, 4,000 could be even more, and there were others actually, and that means that we've got some structures that can be used, but we are having an evaluation of these school buildings and, of course, the trauma that took place in the young people and people who have lost their way. Now, even when the buildings are actually secure, the schools in and of themselves don't go along with these standards, and so there are problems of evacuation when panic strikes, because the earthquake took place, there were after tremors and so on that took place as well. So all of that to tell you that one of the challenges is to organize intake of these children. 1.6 million children that are out of school and have to be taken back to school. So we have to not just hope, but we have to free up some space. And by freeing up space, this means we have to demolish the old buildings after they are having been destroyed. And this is already a challenge in and of itself in terms of cleaning up 4,000 areas. This is a major challenge. It's really a lot to do, and we don't always have the infrastructure or the capacity to do so. But for the moment, we are engaged in that task, and by the end of the month, we say we would have a critical mass of schools that would be freed up to be able to officially relaunch school activities in the departments that have been hard hit. Thus, we have to demolish, we have to clean up, and then we have to get back in place these structures. And we're talking about time, and I would say that the international community has reacted quite well. We've got promises, and we've got some other pledges to get these tents up. And we were also exposed to hurricanes. So in short shrift, there's going to be the hurricane season. So the tents are not just a durable solution. First and foremost, the tents are going to go. We're talking about prefab containers or light structured buildings, for example. For example, we received a lot of pledges from the Florida community that are making available to us the old schools, the schools that were built after the hurricanes. Unfortunately, to get a classroom to Port-au-Prince in the time we have to count on about $1,500 that will come in from Florida. And as I say, there are big challenges in terms of this, in terms of transport costs. Be that as it may, we really have to set up the intake structures, these other temporary structures to take in the children. But once again, just a bit of a specification or clarification. Of everything that was taken down, we cannot just put things up just like that. We have to have time to implement and time to house the children as well, because school material was also destroyed. There are no more seats. We are at our limit, and children have to sit on the ground if necessary, on the floor, as it were, if necessary. It's very heavy. But let's just say that in terms of an enclosed enclosed place. We're not really talking about temporary things. We're talking about temporary structures with lasting structures. So we really have to have at least a roof. We're talking about mobile containers, as it were, because everything was destroyed. We have to have a minimum to have or put back the files of these schools. So we have to have at least a container that will be used as an office and a filing room, as it were. We're talking about 4,000 schools. That's the overview of the schools, and 4,000 in the southeast in terms of intake. So we have to have students, these children that have come out of the debris and they don't have where to go. They have to have materials, pencils and notebooks and so on and so forth. We have to have a teaching package, and the teachers lost everything as well. They have to have a minimum of school materials so that they can actually teach and that they can pick up their activities again. We have to have hot meals for the children, because for the moment we don't have any, and even when they're at home with their families are living in the streets, or either there are no homes, they lost their homes, and they're living outside of their homes. So we have to have a hot meal for all of these children. But over and above everything else, we have to have psychosocial help, massive psychosocial help. The children have been traumatized. We cannot put them directly in an academic environment where they're going to learn in math or Creole or French. We really have to free up their psychosocial, their brain space, as it were, so that they can learn. They have to pick up certain activities and pick up a way and give these children the wherewithal, the means to free up their spirit, free up their mind, so that they can be involved in sports, and give them the wherewithal to prepare to go back to school. Now, we also have to, of course, speak over, by and large, a package that has been envisaged, but that's going to call for certain teaching adaptations. We had already a 4-month school year. Normally it's 10 months, but we have to have 10 months, but now there have to be some adaptations with 4 to 6 months maximum, so that we can at least save part of the school year. We have to have adaptations in the evaluation system. In Haiti, there were more or less 4 official exams: the 6th year, 9th year exam in certain subjects. And here we're talking about a centralized exam system by the end of the primary level, and then for the end of the secondary school as well. We're talking about these 2 kinds of exams, and we really have to have decentralized exams in the schools in time enough, but we don't really have any areas to organize the official evaluation systems, or assessment systems, I should say. So we've got some tweaking to do. But we have been saying that what happened on the 12th of January, the First Lady gave you an overview, and she underscored that the educational system in Haiti already had a lot of shortcomings before the 12th of January. We're talking about 100,000 children outside of school or not in school who are school-age children. We're talking about a system where teachers, at least 30% of teachers, have the necessary qualifications. We're talking about schools where repeats are high, where yield, as it were, or outcomes are weak. So we've got some shortcomings in the system. This is a system which has accommodated 3 million children, but actually left them on the sidelines, about 100,000. So today we have to talk about rebuilding the educational system. We have to actually take advantage of what took place on the 12th of January and get things up and running again, so that we can give an equal opportunity to all Haitian children to be able to mitigate some of the shortcomings. And here we're talking about certification of the teachers. We're talking about adapting the curriculum. We're talking about streamlining the curriculum, physical infrastructure. Our colleague spoke about New Orleans. Mr. Vallas spoke about New Orleans to standardize the physical environment, but we are going to have a concept of the school. And as a matter of fact, I forgot to mention that in Haiti, for the moment at least, the configuration, the semi-educational configuration is non-public by about 80%, and 15 to 20%, which is public. It means that the state has only taken under its wing 15 to 20% of these children. We've got private education, and it's families that take on about 80% of the schooling of their children that takes on educational expenditures. Families, of course, are decapitalized. They're not liquid, and one of the main strong points of our plan is to take on board education of the children, that the state, the society all told, with partners, can shoulder the costs of education, in other words, free up the children from these educational expenses. And particularly, this is one of the components which was at the crux of eliminating 100,000 children that don't have a possibility of going to school. It's not just a question of financing. We really have to also deal with schools that are not close by. There are children that have to go long distances in the rural areas, as the schools are simply not available. They have to travel 4 or 5 hours just to get to school. So we're going to have to get up and running schools that are closer, more accessible. So there are plans, and there have been in the past, in terms of universal school programs. But we're talking about setting up schools that are close by. And if necessary, let's say with the World Bank, we tried a national strategy, education for all, and thus we had multi-grade classes with 3 classrooms. For example, we can accommodate the preschool level with 2 preschool years, and then the first cycle, basic education Haiti, with the multi-grade program. We could explore that in the rural areas to be able to take in the children and to put or get these children in school in the normal hours, which would lead to or solve a semi-educational problem. We've got a high level of about 72% of Haitians that are old. In other words, many are much older than the normal school age that they would be going through those grades or that schooling. So there you have it, what we call the normal age. So it's all of that to say that there are a lot of challenges before us. There are strategies that are underway. Currently, we're working in the PDNA within that framework, an evaluation of the post-disaster needs, and we're also currently working on a short-term strategy which envisages having children in school in the morning, and this will also look at an assessment of the needs. But these are things that have to be operational, up and running very soon. We're talking about medium and long-term plans, but also, in the light of what has happened, we have to provide a new bedrock for the educational system in Haiti. Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you, Monsieur le Ministre Jean-Pierre. The Minister of Education of Haiti emphasized, described the challenges and devastation that we have now in Haiti. He focused obviously on the destruction brought about by the earthquake, but he pointed out that there's also the history and the social conditions that have been pre-existing. And then it's not over. We're looking, or IT is looking at the hurricane season that is coming forth. First Lady Madame Préval also very eloquently and passionately described very similar needs.